I thought hiding under our bed would make him laugh. Instead, I heard him plan my death. Welcome to TJ's story, where every tale uncovers the secrets we hide, the truths we fear, and the courage we didn't know we had. If you're new here, subscribe and turn on notifications, because tonight's story will leave you breathless. Now, let's begin. Lara had always been the kind of woman who laughed too loud at weddings, cried too easily at movies, and believed, truly believed, that love could conquer anything. So when she married Ethan Aakhafer on a golden Saturday afternoon in Ibadan, surrounded by 200 cheering guests, white roses, and the smell of jollof rice drifting from the canopy tents, she felt like the luckiest woman alive. The ceremony had been perfect. Ethan had cried when she walked down the aisle. Her mother had sobbed into her jewel. Even her father, a man who hadn't smiled since 1997, grinned wide enough to show his gold tooth. The DJ played all the right songs. The small chops were endless. And when Ethan whispered, "You're mine forever now," as they swayed to their first dance, Lara had felt a shiver of pure joy run down her spine. Now, hours later, in the honeymoon suite of the Grand Pavilion Hotel, Lara stood barefoot on plush carpet, still wearing her second dress, a flowing white silk number she'd changed into after the reception. Her makeup was slightly smudged from all the hugs and happy tears, her hair still pinned in elegant twists. She felt giddy, nervous, excited, and mischievous. Ethan had stepped out to grab something from the car, something about forgetting his phone charger and needing to make a quick call to his best man. He'd kissed her forehead and promised he'd be back in 5 minutes. 5 minutes. That was all the time Lara needed. She giggled to herself as the idea took shape. It was silly, childish even, but that was who she was. The kind of bride who'd hide under the bed just to see her husband's face when he came back and thought she'd vanished. She imagined him calling her name, confused, maybe a little worried, and then she'd pop out, laughing, and he'd pull her into his arms and call her crazy. Perfect. Lara crouched down, lifting the cream-colored bed skirt. The space underneath was surprisingly roomy, clean, dark, and just big enough for her to slide beneath. She shimmied under, careful not to wrinkle her dress too much, and settled onto her stomach, facing the door. Dust tickled her nose, but she held back a sneeze, biting her lip to keep from laughing out loud. The room was silent except for the hum of the air conditioner and the faint buzz of the city outside the window. Lara's heart thumped with playful anticipation. She checked her watch. 3 minutes had passed. Any second now. Then she heard it. Footsteps. But not the ones she expected. These footsteps were heavier, slower. There were 2 sets. Lara's smile faltered. The door clicked open. Lock it. Ethan's voice, but it wasn't the warm, gentle tone he'd used all day. It was sharp, tense, almost frightened. Lara's breath caught in her throat. A second voice responded, low, male, unfamiliar. You're sure she's not here? She thinks I went to the car. We have 10 minutes, maybe less. Lara's pulse quickened. Her playful grin evaporated. She pressed herself flat against the floor, suddenly very aware of how exposed she was. The bed skirt hid her, yes, but barely. If either of them looked down, if they crouched, if they dropped something. Stay still, don't breathe. She heard the sound of a bag being set down. Heavy. Leather, maybe. It landed with a dull thud near the foot of the bed, so close she could have reached out and touched it. You brought it, Ethan's voice again, strained. Everything, documents, cash, the signed agreement. You just need to make sure she signs her half tomorrow morning, before she realizes. She won't realize, she trusts me. Lara's stomach twisted. What? You better hope so, the other man said coldly. Because if she finds out what you're really after, this whole thing falls apart, and you know what happens then. Silence. Then Ethan's voice, quieter now, almost a whisper. She won't find out. Lara felt the floor tilt beneath her. The air in the room seemed to thicken. Her hands, pressed flat against the carpet, began to tremble. What is he talking about? What documents? What agreement? The other man sighed. You better be right, because tonight you're supposed to be a happy groom, not a man about to commit fraud. Fraud. Lara's mind spun. She wanted to scream. She wanted to crawl out from under the bed and demand answers. But her body refused to move. Fear had locked her in place. "I'll handle it," Ethan said, his voice hardening. "Just leave the papers and go. I'll get her signature in the morning. She'll think it's some marriage registration form. She won't even read it." She better not. Footsteps again, moving toward the door. But then, they stopped. One more thing. Lara's heart hammered. If she asks questions, if she gets suspicious, she won't. If she does, the man continued, his voice dropping to something dark and final, you know what needs to happen. You've come too far to back out now. A pause. Then Ethan's voice, barely audible. I know. The door opened. Closed. Silence. Lara lay frozen beneath the bed, her mind screaming, her body numb. She could hear Ethan moving around the room now, alone. She heard the zipper of the bag, the rustle of papers, a quiet curse under his breath. Then his phone buzzed. "Yeah, it's me," Ethan said into the phone. His voice had shifted again, back to calm, controlled. "No, everything's fine. She doesn't suspect a thing." Lara felt tears sting her eyes. Who is he talking to? "I'll have it done by morning," Ethan continued. "Then we move forward. She signed the marriage certificate. That's the first step. Tomorrow she signs the property transfer. After that, we're golden." A pause. Then Ethan laughed. It was a sound Lara had never heard before. Cold, calculated. "No," he said. "She's not smart enough to figure it out, trust me." Lara bit down on her knuckles to keep from sobbing. And then, footsteps, coming toward the bed. She squeezed her eyes shut, every muscle in her body taut with terror. "Please don't look, please don't look." Ethan sat down on the edge of the mattress, right above her. The springs creaked. Lara could see his shoes, black, polished, the same ones he'd worn when he promised to love her forever. He sat there for what felt like an eternity. Then he stood, walked to the door, and left. The lock clicked behind him. Lara lay under the bed, trembling, tears streaming silently down her face. And in the suffocating darkness, one thought pounded through her mind. The man I just married wants to destroy me. What will Lara do next? Will she confront Ethan or run, find out in what is coming next? Lara didn't know how long she stayed under that bed. It could have been 5 minutes. It could have been 50. Time had stopped making sense the moment she heard her husband, plot against her with a stranger in the room where they were supposed to consummate their vows. Her body ached from lying so still. Her silk dress was wrinkled and damp with sweat. Dust clung to her arms, her face, her hair, but she didn't move. She couldn't, because somewhere in the back of her mind a primal instinct whispered, if you move, you die. Finally, when the silence had stretched so long it felt like the room itself was holding its breath, Lara began to inch forward. Slowly, carefully. Her fingers trembled as she lifted the edge of the bed skirt and peered out into the dimly lit suite. The bedside lamps cast a soft golden glow across the room. Everything looked exactly as it had before, untouched, elegant, romantic. Except now, Lara knew the truth. This wasn't a honeymoon suite. It was a trap. She slid out from under the bed, her knees weak, her breathing shallow. She stood slowly brushing dust from her dress with shaking hands. Her reflection stared back at her from the mirror across the room, a bride with smudged mascara, wild eyes, and a face drained of all color. Who was that man? What documents was Ethan talking about? What property transfer? Lara's gaze fell to the leather bag near the foot of the bed. It sat there like a sleeping beast, dark, ominous, waiting. She swallowed hard. Don't open it, just leave. Run, call someone. But her feet moved forward. She crouched beside the bag, her hands hovering over the zipper. Every instinct screamed at her to stop, but she had to know. She had to understand what she'd just heard. Maybe I misunderstood. Maybe it's not what I think. Deep down, she knew she was lying to herself. Lara unzipped the bag. Inside, neatly stacked, were documents, lots of them. She pulled out the first bundle, crisp white papers held together with a black binder clip. Her eyes scanned the title page. Deed of Transfer. Property LOCATED 18012 Admiralty Way, LEKKI Phase 1. Lara's heart stopped. That was her father's property. The house her late father had left to her in his will. The house she'd inherited 3 years ago. The house worth over 200 million naira. Her hands shook as she flipped through the pages. Legal jargon, clauses, signatures she didn't recognize, and at the bottom of the final page, a blank space, waiting for her signature. No, she whispered. No, no, no. She grabbed another document, then another. Power of attorney, transferring all legal rights to ETHAN OKFOR. Joint account authorization, full access granted. Life insurance policy, beneficiary, ETHAN OKFOR. Every single page was designed to strip her of everything she owned. Her property, her inheritance, her freedom. And she was supposed to sign them all tomorrow morning, thinking they were just routine marriage paperwork. Lara's vision blurred with tears. She dropped the documents and pressed her hands over her mouth to stifle a sob. He married me for my money. He never loved me. He's been planning this the entire time. The weight of it crushed her. All those months of courtship, the romantic dinners, the late-night phone calls, the way he'd held her hand and promised her forever, it had all been a lie, a performance, a con. And she had fallen for every single word. But then, something else caught her eye. A sealed manila envelope at the bottom of the bag. It was thicker than the others, heavier, and across the front, written in red ink, were 2 words. Contingency plan. Lara's blood ran cold. Her fingers trembled as she tore open the envelope and pulled out the contents. Inside were photographs. The first one showed her house in Lekki. The second showed her car. The third showed her at a cafe, laughing with her best friend, Eng Kem. Someone had been watching her. For how long? She flipped to the next page, a printed email chain. The sender's name made her stomach lurch. Chief Adelek. Ethan's uncle. The man who had sat in the front row at their wedding. The man who had given a glowing speech about family and unity. The man who had hugged her and called her daughter. Lara's eyes raced across the email. From Chief Adelek. To Ethan Akafer. Subject, final instructions. Ethan. Everything is in place. The marriage is tomorrow. Once she signs the transfer documents, we move the property into the company's name and liquidate within 72 hours. If she becomes suspicious or refuses to sign, proceed with Plan B. The insurance policy will cover it. Make it look accidental. We've handled situations like this before. Do not get emotional. She is a means to an end, nothing more. Lara's hands went numb. The papers slipped from her fingers and scattered across the floor. Make it look accidental. Plan B. They were going to kill her. If she didn't sign the documents, if she asked too many questions, if she figured out the truth, they were going to kill her and make it look like an accident. A wave of nausea hit her so hard she thought she might vomit. She stumbled backward, pressing her back against the bed, gasping for air. This can't be real. This can't be happening. But it was. The man she had married, the man she had trusted with her life, the man she had loved. He was going to murder her for money. And then, the door handle turned. Lara's head snapped toward the sound. No. The lock clicked. The door began to open. Panic exploded through her body. She grabbed the documents, shoved them back into the bag, and zipped it shut. Her mind screamed at her to hide, to run, to do something. But there was nowhere to go. The door swung open. Ethan stepped inside. He was smiling. Hey, baby, he said warmly, closing the door behind him. Sorry that took so long. My phone died and I had to borrow Thomas's charger. You miss me. Lara stood frozen in the center of the room, her heart hammering so loudly she was sure he could hear it. Ethan's smile faltered. Lara, you okay? She forced herself to breathe, to think, to lie. I'm fine, she said, her voice barely steady. Just tired, it's been a long day. Ethan walked toward her, his eyes soft, his hands reaching for her waist. I know, my love, come here. He pulled her into his arms. Lara stood stiff as a board, her mind screaming, her body trembling. Ethan kissed the top of her head. I love you so much, he whispered. And Lara felt her soul shatter. Because she knew, without a doubt, those words meant nothing. Lara didn't sleep that night. She lay beside Ethan in the king-sized bed, her body rigid, her eyes wide open in the darkness. He had his arm draped over her waist, his breathing slow and steady, as if he didn't have a care in the world. As if he wasn't planning to destroy her. Every few minutes, Lara would glance at the leather bag sitting in the corner of the room, exactly where Ethan had left it after she'd quickly shoved it back when he walked in. He hadn't noticed, or maybe he had, and he was just that good at pretending. How long has he been pretending? The question gnawed at her. She thought back to the beginning, to the day they met. It had been at her friend Enkem's birthday party almost a year ago. Lara had been standing by the buffet table, laughing at something ridiculous, when Ethan appeared beside her with a plate of small chops and a charming smile. You have the best laugh I've ever heard, he'd said. And just like that, she was hooked. He was handsome, polite, well-spoken. He worked in investments, he'd said. He had family money but wasn't flashy about it. He was generous, thoughtful, and he made her feel like the only woman in the world. Within 3 months, he'd proposed. Everyone had told her it was too fast. Her mother had raised an eyebrow. Enkem had asked if she was sure. Even her younger brother had joked, Sister, you don't even know his favorite food yet. But Lara had brushed them all off. When you know, she'd said. Now, lying in the dark, she realized how naive she'd been. She thought about the little things, the moments she'd ignored. Like the time Ethan had asked, casually over dinner, about her father's properties. Just curious, he'd said. You're a woman of means. I want to make sure I'm worthy of you. She'd laughed and told him everything. Or the time he'd suggested she update her will. We're getting married, he'd said. We should make sure we're each other's beneficiaries. It's just smart planning. She'd agreed without question. Or the time he'd introduced her to Chief Adelek, his favorite uncle, who'd taken her hands in his and said, You're a blessing to this family, my dear. A true blessing. She'd felt honored. Now she felt sick. It was all a setup. From the very beginning. Ethan stirred beside her, pulling her closer in his sleep. Lara's stomach churned. She waited until his breathing deepened again. Then, slowly, carefully, she slipped out of his grip and slid out of bed. The suite was dark except for the faint glow of the city lights filtering through the curtains. Lara tiptoed across the room, her bare feet silent on the carpet. She glanced back at Ethan, still asleep, and then moved toward the leather bag. She had to see it again. She had to be sure. She unzipped the bag as quietly as possible and pulled out the manila envelope. This time, she looked more carefully. There were more emails, more photographs, and at the very bottom, a handwritten note. The handwriting was sharp, angular, unfamiliar. Hey, if she becomes a problem, we have contacts who can handle it cleanly. Car accident, drowning, gas leak, whatever works. The insurance payout alone is $50 million. Combined with the property sale, we're looking at $250 million minimum. Don't lose your nerve now. You've done this before. Lara's breath hitched. You've done this before. Her mind reeled. Before. She rifled through the papers again, faster now, her hands shaking. And then she found it. A newspaper clipping. Yellowed, creased, folded carefully and tucked between 2 documents. The headline read, Young widow dies in tragic home fire. Husband INHERITS estate. Beneath it was a photo. A woman, young, pretty, smiling. And standing beside her in the photo. Ethan. Lara's knees buckled. She grabbed the edge of the desk to steady herself, her vision swimming. He's done this before. He married someone else, and she's dead. The room spun. Lara pressed a hand over her mouth, bile rising in her throat. I'm not the first. I'm just the next. She heard movement behind her. Her blood turned to ice. Lara. Ethan's voice, groggy, confused. She spun around. He was sitting up in bed, squinting at her in the darkness. What are you doing? He asked. Lara's mind went blank. She stood frozen, the newspaper clipping still clutched in her hand. Ethan's eyes drifted to the open bag, then to the papers scattered on the desk. Then to her face. His expression shifted. The warmth drained away. And for the first time since she'd met him, Lara saw the truth in his eyes. Cold. Calculating. Dangerous. Lara, he said slowly, swinging his legs out of bed. What did you do? She took a step back. Stay away from me. Ethan stood. He didn't rush. He didn't shout. He just walked toward her, calm and steady like a predator stalking prey. Baby, he said softly. You're confused, you're tired, let me explain. Don't, Lara's voice cracked. Don't lie to me anymore. Ethan stopped a few feet away, his hands raised in a placating gesture. Lara, listen to me. I heard you, she said, tears streaming down her face. I heard everything. I was under the bed. I heard you and that man. I know what you're planning. I know about the documents. I know about the property. I know about. She held up the newspaper clipping, her hand shaking. I know about her. Ethan's jaw tightened. For a long moment, he said nothing. Then he sighed. And smiled. It was the most terrifying thing Lara had ever seen. Well, he said quietly, I guess we're done pretending. What would you do if you discovered this on your wedding night? Would you run? Would you fight? Would you trust anyone ever again? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. And if you're hooked on Lara's story, hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications, because what is coming soon, and trust me, you do not want to miss what happens next. This is TJ's story, where the truth is always darker than the veil. See you in the next one. The smile on Ethan's face didn't reach his eyes. It was the kind of smile a man wears when he's been caught, but he knows he still holds all the cards. The kind of smile that says, you may have found out, but what exactly are you going to do about it? Lara's heart pounded so hard she could feel it in her throat. She clutched the newspaper clipping like a lifeline, her back pressed against the desk, her eyes locked on the man she'd married less than 12 hours ago. Ethan, she whispered, her voice trembling. Who was she? Ethan tilted his head, as if considering whether to answer. Then he shrugged. Her name was Kioma, he said casually, like he was discussing the weather. Sweet girl, a bit naive like you. She had a house in Abuja, 3 plots of land in Asaba, and a trust fund her parents left her. Lara felt the room tilt. You married her for her money. Of course I did. Ethan's tone was matter of fact. Why else would I marry someone? The words hit Lara like a slap. And the fire, she asked, her voice barely audible. The one that killed her. Ethan's smile widened. Faulty gas line, he said. Tragic, really. The investigators ruled it an accident. I played the grieving widower beautifully, collected the insurance payout, sold the properties, walked away with 120 million naira. Lara's legs gave out. She sank to the floor, her back against the desk, her mind unable to process what she was hearing. He killed her. He killed her and got away with it. And now he's going to kill me. Lara. Ethan said, shaking his head as he walked closer. You weren't supposed to find out. You were supposed to wake up tomorrow morning, sign those nice little documents I prepared for you, and go on being my happy, clueless wife. We could have had a good run, A year, maybe 2. I would have treated you well, taken you on trips, bought you nice things. He crouched down in front of her, his face inches from hers. But you just had to go snooping. Lara's breath came in short, panicked gasps. She tried to scramble backward, but there was nowhere to go. Please, she whispered. Please, Ethan, don't. Don't what? He interrupted, his voice soft, almost gentle. Don't hurt you. Lara, I don't want to hurt you, I just want what's mine. And technically, once you signed those papers, everything you own would have been mine. Legally, cleanly, no mess. He reached out and brushed a strand of hair from her face. Lara flinched. But now you've complicated things, he continued. And complications require adjustments. Lara's mind raced. She had to get out, she had to run, she had to. Her phone. It was on the nightstand, if she could just get to it. Ethan followed her gaze and laughed. Looking for this. He stood and walked over to the nightstand, picking up her phone. He held it up, waved it mockingly, and then slipped it into his pocket. Can't have you calling for help, now can we? Lara's chest tightened. Panic clawed at her insides. Ethan, please, she begged, tears streaming down her face. I won't tell anyone, I'll sign the papers, I'll give you everything, just let me go, please. Ethan studied her for a long moment, as if genuinely considering it. Then he sighed. You know I can't do that, Lara. You've seen too much, you know too much. And even if you promised to stay quiet, I couldn't trust you. People always talk eventually. He pulled his own phone from his pocket and typed something quickly. What are you doing? Lara asked, her voice breaking. Calling in a favor, Ethan said without looking up. Chief Adelic has people who handle situations like this. Cleaners, we call them. They'll make it look like you got drunk, wandered out onto the balcony, and fell. Tragic wedding night accident. I'll be devastated, of course. The grieving husband who lost his bride before they even had a chance to start their lives together. He looked up at her, his eyes empty. The insurance payout on you is $50 million, by the way. Not as much as Kioma, but combined with the property sale, it'll do. Lara felt the world collapse around her. This is it. This is how I die. But then, a spark. A flicker of something deep inside her. Ray. She wasn't going to die here. Not like this. Not for him. Lara's eyes darted around the room, searching for anything she could use. And then she saw it. The lamp on the desk behind her. Heavy, brass, solid. Ethan was still looking at his phone, typing another message. Lara didn't think. She just moved. She grabbed the lamp, ripped the cord from the wall, and swung it with every ounce of strength she had. The base of the lamp connected with the side of Ethan's head with a sickening crack. He stumbled backward, his phone flying from his hand, his eyes wide with shock. You. Lara didn't wait for him to finish. She bolted for the door. Her hands fumbled with the lock. Come on, and then it clicked open. She yanked the door wide and ran. The hotel hallway was empty, dimly lit, stretching endlessly in both directions. Lara didn't care, she just ran. Behind her, she heard Ethan's voice, roaring with fury. Lara. She didn't look back. She sprinted down the hallway, her bare feet slapping against the cold tile, her breath coming in ragged sobs. She passed door after door, all of them closed, all of them silent. Where's everyone? Why is no one here? She reached the elevator and slammed her hand against the button. Come on. Footsteps pounded behind her. She glanced over her shoulder. Ethan was coming. Blood trickled down the side of his face, but he was smiling. There's nowhere to go, Lara, he shouted. It's 2 a.m., no one's awake, no one's going to help you. The elevator dinged. The doors slid open. Lara threw herself inside and jabbed the button for the lobby. The doors began to close. And Ethan's hand shot through the gap. The doors bounced back open. Lara screamed. Ethan stepped into the elevator, his eyes wild, his breathing heavy. You shouldn't have done that, he said quietly. Lara pressed herself into the corner, her hands raised defensively. Stay away from me. Ethan took a step forward. And then, the elevator doors opened again. A security guard stood there, his eyes wide with confusion. What's going on here? Ethan's face transformed instantly. The rage vanished. The charm returned. Oh, thank God, he said, his voice dripping with concern. My wife, she's not well. She's been drinking and she's confused. I'm trying to get her back to our room. The guard looked at Lara, then at Ethan, then back at Lara. Miss, are you all right? Lara's mouth opened. And for one terrifying second, she froze. Because she realized something. If she told the truth, if she accused Ethan right here, right now, who would believe her? She was barefoot, disheveled, crying, hysterical. He was calm, composed, bleeding from a head wound she had caused. Who looks like the victim here? Ethan must have seen the realization in her eyes, because his smile returned. It's okay, baby, he said softly, reaching for her hand. Let's just go back to the room, you need rest. Lara jerked her hand away. No, she said firmly, her voice steadier than she felt. I'm not going anywhere with you. She turned to the guard. Please, she said. I need to leave, I need to go home, right now. The guard hesitated, clearly uncomfortable. Miss, if you're having a domestic issue, maybe we should call. She's fine, Ethan interrupted smoothly. She's just overwhelmed. It's been a long day, wedding jitters. I'm not fine, Lara shouted, her voice echoing through the lobby. He's lying, he's trying to. Lara, please, Ethan said, his tone gentle but firm. You're embarrassing yourself. The guard shifted awkwardly. Lara realized she was losing this battle. So she changed tactics. I want to go to my mother's house, she said, her voice breaking. Please, just let me leave. The guard looked at Ethan. Ethan sighed, as if deeply pained. If that's what you want, he said quietly, I'll call you a cab. Lara didn't trust him. But she didn't have a choice. 10 minutes later, she was sitting in the back of a taxi, her hands trembling, her mind racing. Ethan had stood in the hotel lobby, watching her leave, his face unreadable. As the taxi pulled away, Lara looked back. Ethan was on his phone. And he was smiling. Lara's mother lived in a modest bungalow in Bodija, a quiet neighborhood where the streets were lined with frangipani trees and the only sounds at night were crickets and the occasional bark of a dog. It was the house Lara had grown up in, the house where her father had taken his last breath, the house that had always felt like safety. But tonight, as the taxi pulled up to the gate, Lara didn't feel safe. She felt hunted. She paid the driver with shaking hands and stumbled out of the car, her bare feet touching the cool pavement. The gate was locked, so she banged on it with her fist, her voice hoarse. Mama, please, open the gate. A light flickered on inside the house. A few moments later, her mother appeared at the gate, wrapped in a faded wrapper, her face creased with sleep and confusion. Lara, what in God's name? Please, Mama, let me in. Her mother unlocked the gate, and Lara stumbled inside, collapsing into her arms. Lara, what happened? Where is Ethan? Why are you here? Why are you dressed like this? Lara couldn't speak. She just sobbed. Her mother guided her into the house, sat her down on the old sofa, and wrapped a blanket around her shoulders. She disappeared into the kitchen and returned with a glass of water. Drink, she commanded. Lara obeyed, her hands still shaking. Her mother sat beside her, her face tight with worry. Now tell me, what happened? And so Lara told her everything. The prank, the voices, the bag, the documents, the newspaper clipping, Ethan's confession, the lamp, the escape. By the time she finished, her mother's face had gone pale. Jesus Christ, she whispered. Mama, what do I do? Lara begged. He's going to come for me, he's going to. No one is coming for you, her mother said firmly. She stood, her jaw set with determination. Stay here, don't move. Mama, where are you? But her mother was already gone, marching into her bedroom. Lara heard drawers opening, things being moved. A few minutes later, her mother returned holding an old Nokia phone. "This was your father's," she said, handing it to Lara. "It still works. No one knows this number. Use it." Then she pulled out something else. A small handgun. Lara's eyes widened. "Mama, your father kept it for protection," her mother said simply. "And now, so will I. If that man comes anywhere near this house, he'll regret it." Lara had never seen her mother like this. Calm, cold, ready. "Now," her mother said, sitting back down, "we need to think. Do you have proof, evidence?" "The documents are still in the hotel room," Lara said. "The bag, the emails, the clipping, everything." Her mother cursed under her breath. "Then we need to get it back." "Are you insane?" Lara said. "I'm not going back there." "You don't have to," her mother said. She picked up her own phone and dialed a number. "Who are you calling?" "Your Uncle Jide." Lara's heart sank. Uncle Jide was her mother's younger brother, a retired police officer with a stubborn streak and a network of contacts across Ibadan. The phone rang twice before a gruff voice answered. "Sister Me, do you know what time it is?" "Jide, I need your help, now." There was a pause. "What happened?" Her mother explained quickly, efficiently, leaving out no detail. When she finished, Uncle Jide was silent for a long moment. Then he said, "I'm coming, don't let her out of your sight." He hung up. 20 minutes later, Uncle Jide arrived with two other men, both former colleagues from his police days. They were dressed in plain clothes, but they moved with the kind of confidence that came from years of handling dangerous situations. Uncle Jide hugged Lara tightly. "You're safe now," he said. Then he turned to his men. "We're going to that hotel, we're getting those documents, and then we're taking this bastard down." 3 hours later, the sun was beginning to rise when Uncle Jide returned. He was holding the leather bag. Lara's mother let out a breath of relief. "How did you?" "The hotel manager is an old friend," Uncle Jide said. "I explained the situation. He let us into the room. Your husband wasn't there. Probably ran when he realized you weren't coming back." He set the bag on the table and opened it. "Everything's here. The documents, the emails, the clipping, all of it." Lara stared at the bag, her chest tight. "What happens now?" Uncle Jide smiled grimly. "Now we go to the police. We file a report. We get a lawyer. And we bury this man so deep he'll never see daylight again." 2 weeks later, Lara sat in the courtroom, her hands folded in her lap, her mother beside her. Across the room, Ethan sat in handcuffs, flanked by two police officers. His face was expressionless. Chief Adelic sat in the gallery, his face ashen. The judge read the charges. Fraud, attempted murder, conspiracy, and in the case of Kioma, the investigation had been reopened. New evidence had been found. Witness testimony had emerged. Ethan's carefully constructed empire was crumbling. When the judge asked if he had anything to say, Ethan finally looked at Lara. For a moment, she thought she saw regret in his eyes. But then he smiled. That same cold, empty smile. And Lara realized he didn't regret what he'd done. He only regretted getting caught. The judge sentenced him to 25 years. Chief Adelic received 15. As they were led away, Lara felt something she hadn't felt in weeks. Relief. Lara stood in front of her father's house in Lekki, the keys in her hand. She'd fought for this house, for her inheritance, for her life. And she'd won. She unlocked the door and stepped inside. The house smelled like fresh paint and new beginnings. Her mother had helped her renovate it. Uncle Jide had insisted on installing a new security system. Engkem had thrown her a "you survived a psychopath" party. And now, for the first time in months, Lara felt like herself again. Not a victim. Not a fool. A survivor. She walked out onto the balcony and looked out at the ocean. The sun was setting, painting the sky in shades of gold and pink. Lara smiled. She thought about that night, the prank, the hiding, the discovery. If she hadn't hidden under that bed, if she hadn't heard those voices, she would be dead. Thank God for that stupid prank, she whispered to herself. And then she laughed. A real, genuine, free laugh. Because she was alive. And she was never, ever letting anyone take that away from her again. Lara's prank saved her life. Sometimes the smallest decisions, hiding under a bed, listening to your gut, refusing to ignore the red flags, can change everything. If this story made you feel something, drop a comment below. Tell me, would you have stayed and fought, or would you have run? What would you have done? And if you made it all the way to the end, you're part of the TJ Story family now. Hit that subscribe button, turn on notifications, and stick around, because we've got more stories coming that will shock you, inspire you, and remind you that the truth is always stranger than fiction. This is TJ Story, where every secret has a price, and every story leaves a mark. See you in the next one.